Hey guys, Dirt here. We're back with a second video this week taking a look at comic book reviews because, well, quite frankly, as soon as we posted the last video, we got a bunch of feedback from people looking for more reviews. They wanted us to take a look at some more stuff, and we figured, well, why not? Plus, this serves as a pretty good commercial to remind you that we're going to be at C2E2 this year walking around covering the show. So if you're not going to be there and you want to see some coverage, make sure you check us out. Also, if you are going to be there, keep an eye open for us. We'd love to see you. But the first thing we're going to take a look at today is actually from DC Comics. They were nice enough to send us a review copy of God of War #1. 6-issue miniseries coming out from Wildstorm. And if you're a big fan of the video games, this story actually takes place between God of War 2 and God of War 3. So it does a pretty good job of covering the gap in between the two. But let's assume for a minute that, you know, maybe you don't play a lot of video games, but you like Greek mythology, and maybe you want to pick it up for some other reasons. Well, luckily, this story does a good job of setting up the background of Kratos and giving you information about his character as the story unfolds. So if you've never played the game before, you're still going to be able to follow what's happening here. And of course, if you are a fan of the game, I think it tells a pretty good story. It does a good job of speaking in Kratos' voice, and you can really hear it in your head as you're going through, and it feels like another chapter in the story. Now, the artwork is actually very reminiscent of another Wildstorm video game adaptation, and that is for Dante's Inferno. If you're familiar with Dante's Inferno and you like that story, this is going to be right up your alley because it's very similar. Now, for some people, though, the artwork is going to seem a little too dark, and it's not as crisp and clean as the graphics in the video game, so you might want to flip through it first. But I think all in all, if you're a fan of just stuff like 300 and you want another good, you know, hardcore Greek mythology type story, or if you're really into the God of War games, I think you're going to enjoy that. Now, second of all, let's talk about Fantastic Four. Now, I really love what's been going on in this book over the last few months. This has taken a classic sci-fi feel. The stories are really built around this idea of going back to that kind of 60s and 70s sci-fi where things get a little out there sometimes, but there's always that glimmer of the essence of humanity shining through. And I think one thing that really stands out about this book is that over the last few months, they've been doing a good job of building up this idea that there's stuff happening in the world around us that you don't necessarily see in your day-to-day life. And sometimes they can kind of build up and build up and build up, and then boom, they explode all over humanity, and we have to clean up the pieces. And what we're seeing here in this issue is another chapter of that unfolding, this time on the moon with the Inhumans. Black Bolt is coming back. He's going to be leading this big group of Inhumans, and, well, unfortunately, it looks like Earth is in their crosshairs. There's something big brewing, and the Fantastic Four have found themselves in the middle of this. Now, one thing that has really kind of thrown readers for a loop is the final page of the stories for the last several issues are basically text, kind of explaining some epilogue story points or giving you some background information on some of the stuff that's been in the story. And it's a little weird, it's a little awkward, but I think it works, again, bringing in that classic 60s, 70s sci-fi feel, when a lot of those comics, they really didn't know how much story to give you and how much dialogue to give you. And so he's doing it in a different way, but it still invokes that good Silver Age feeling. And I, for one, really enjoy it. So Fantastic Four is a series that you probably do want to check out. Now, talking about classic sci-fi, we have Agon from Zenescope Entertainment. Now, if you go to ineedcomics.com, you can check out the interview I did with the writer Scott Byrne. And I have to say that now that I've actually read the book, it is a really good classic sci-fi story, following something like, Armageddon or one of those great, epic movies where the end of the world is coming, people are going to be dying. 2012 is another example of those type stories. There's something big brewing, and it's pulling all of humanity together, and you basically have this alien race who's coming to Earth and saying, you know what, we've watched the humans develop, we've watched you grow, and now you're going to have to fight for your place in the hierarchy of the universe. Now, the one problem with this book, I'd have to say, though, is the artwork. Paul Roper does a good job, I think, of creating characters and doing some interesting layouts on the pages. but the inking that's done on top of his pencils looks a little too sketchy. The anatomy gets a little too weird sometimes. He needs someone with a steadier hand going back over his work and kind of cleaning things up. Also, the coloring is a little iffy on this. It looks like airbrushing, something you saw a lot in the independent days in the mid-90s. And I wish they would kind of, go back and kind of mellow that out a little bit to better suit Roper's style of doing the artwork here. But again, if you like those end-of-the-world type stories where all of planet Earth must work together as one, you like those big epic, Michael Bay type movies, then this is going to invoke some of that similar feel, along with mixing in kind of that traditional, Star Trek, humanity is going to be okay type of, smart sci-fi in the middle of all of that. All right, Nemesis. We had a couple people asking about Nemesis and is it any good? Well, short answer, yes. Long answer is, we don't really know, but it seems like it's going to be pretty good. There's not a whole lot of story in this, other than the fact that we meet our antagonist and our protagonist. We get to see them in action, so we get an idea of what they're all about. And, well, we just see a bunch of stuff blow up, a bunch of people get shot, there's a bunch of blood, and it's setting up for something big to happen in the future. Now, to be fair, it is a first issue, so you're not going to find a lot of things resolved in your opening storyline. However, there's still a lot of questions about our main bad guy here. Does he have any superpowers, or is he just a guy who's really, really good, really, really smart? We know that the police chief that he's going to be facing off against is actually just a regular guy who's just a kick-ass John Wayne, take no prisoners, shoot all the crackheads type of guy, which is great. So it's a nice mix of those two characters. But will it play out well in the long run? I'm getting a feeling like yes, because I've yet to be disappointed by Mark Millar and a lot of his stuff. But, who's to say? Should you pick up the first issue? Probably. And if you're a big fan of Kick-Ass, then you're probably going to pick it up anyway because it's, the guy who did Kick-Ass, and it's something you're going to want to check out. Finally, the most infamous book in the history of comic books. The most infamous book to hit the racks this year, WWE You Rose. Okay, all right, guys, settle down, okay? Is it good? Well, if you're my age and you sit down and read this and take it at face value, you're probably not going to enjoy it a whole lot. If you're a teenager and you're looking for WWE heroes and kind of this over-the-top fantastic fantasy story, you're probably going to enjoy it. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. When you see Aztec warriors fighting tiger men, people who are half human, half tiger, does that upset you? Do you look at that and go, ugh, why am I looking at this in a comic? Or do you think, aha, whatever, let's go along with the story and see where it leads us? Because if you're in the latter category, then you're probably going to enjoy WWE Heroes. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not terrible either. You just have to put yourself in the right frame of mind for some escapist, guys beating each other up, this warrior from the dawn of time looking for this hero from the dawn of time, one who embodies evil versus one who embodies goodness and light, clashing against each other. If you can, buy into some of that, then you might actually enjoy the book a little bit. But, you really have to ask yourself, when you watch something like professional wrestling, are you okay with the storylines? Are you okay with a guy like Undertaker, who's come back from the dead, lives in Death Valley, all of that kind of goofiness that comes inherently with professional wrestling? If you're okay with that, you'll be okay with this book. If that stuff drives you nuts and just makes you want to stick a pencil in your eyeball, then you're probably not going to want to check the series out. But I think for the average person, couple bucks, check out the issue. You can download it now for the iPhone, the iPad, whatever, that kind of stuff. Then go ahead and check it out and see if maybe you might enjoy it a little bit. But it's not the worst thing that's ever come out in the history of comics. And trust me, I've been reading a lot of comics, and I know absolute garbage when I see it, and this isn't that. Alright guys, thanks for listening. Don't forget to check out ineedcomics.com, part of the Pop Culture Network, to find out more comic book news and reviews. And make sure you check out the rest of popculturenetwork.com for more podcasts and toy reviews and just all sorts of neat stuff covering the whole realm of geek nerd goodness. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.